Hello everyone, I've done some reworking of my website. I've converted it from its old Jekyll website, static website, to NextJs. This was one of the little projects I've had to do over the kind of Christmas period. And I want to just show you what I've done, show you how I've converted it and how I've configured it. Some of the pain points. It's still a work in progress, really, because there's still some things that I want to add to it. But I'll take you through how it works and what I've decided to do, and maybe there'll be some learnings in that at all. Right, so it's a Next.js site. So I created it, and it's using Next 10. And so inside the pages, I've got the normal stuff. We've got a blog. I've transferred all of the posts from my Jekyll site into the same _posts folder. So if anybody's used Jekyll at all, you'll recognize this. And so I wanted a way of keeping the same content. So I basically want a straight migration of all this content over. And the other thing I want to do is I didn't want to break any live links. Here is the new site running on davetales.me. And if I go to any of the articles, then these links will be the same as the old site. So that was one of my requirements that I had. I didn't want to break anything. The other thing was that there's some functionality which I used to kind of pull out tags, things like that, which was very, very simply done in Jekyll. And I wanted a bit more power, which I haven't got yet, but it's coming. So let's have a look. So first of all, the other thing I wanted to achieve actually was that my old Jekyll site was already very, very fast because it was just a static site. And I'm just conscious that even though this is still exporting a static site into using Next.js, because of the React on the front end hydrating the site, actually I was expecting it to be very, very slightly slower for the user, but I don't want to kind of give up the speed of the site from what it was before. So let's just dive in and take a look at a few things. So first of all, I'll show you how I did the posts. Most of this was based on the some good articles I read around the internet, mainly on Next.js's blog, and other people have kind of contributed to that. So I've actually created a Slug page within blog, which will deal with all of the blog posts inside the posts folder. Now, what this does, if I close this up, I'll maximize this so we can have a look at this clearer. What this does is it sets up the main kind of layout for each post. It's got a loading state if the JSON has been called from the server without kind of the full HTML. It's got a post header and the body. Now this is all pretty standard, and getStaticProps is the part where things start to get a little bit different. So this follows a lot of that Next.js blog post where it's using MDX to get Markdown from those get HTML from those Markdown files in the posts folder. So let's have a look. So get post by Slug The slug that's going to come in is going to be, so if let's bring up the actual site here. So if we look at one of the articles, the slug will be everything from the blog folder itself in the URL. So it'll be 2020 11 25 and then the name of the actual post. And that directly correlates to the name of the file. So all I do here is I join all of those pieces into a single string with the hyphen separated. And you can see that if we find that particular post in the files, that is pretty much what we've got here. This getPostBySlug function takes in that string, and I've decided that whenever we pull the details of a slug of a post, to just include all of the front matter. There isn't a lot in my posts of front matter. There's just some key things like category, like title. In fact, if you look at this, we can see that it's just title, post image, and an array of categories. Most of them are like that. There are a few others with a series and things like that, but actually the front matter isn't there isn't a lot of data there, so that shouldn't kind of add a lot of bloat to the page. Now this getPostBySlug function can be called from different places, hence why in this getStaticProps, we've actually joined the individual slug items together, whereas it could be called from the slug itself where we don't have them separated. So we do, what I'm doing here is I'm pulling out the year, the month, the day, and the title using a regular expression from that slug with the MD at the end. This will give me the different parts, and once we've actually read the contents of that file, so that's using this matter function. Matter comes from a package called grey matter, and that will read the file contents, and it will split it out into the front matter, the data, and then the rest of the file. So then we can basically separate out all of those pieces for that post, the data itself. And if we want the content to come back, then it will include the content in that output. So one of the things that I've found that I've really got to be careful of is what data is actually being exported into the static props. It's very easy to kind of actually bloat the whole page accidentally. So at one point, without me realizing it, this all posts was going into every single page, and it basically was meaning that the page, every single blog post had a list of every other single blog post in the actual page source. So if we look at the page source, so if I look at next data in here, this is bringing in details of every single post into the page. Now this is something that I need to actually improve, because that adds a lot of bloat to the page, and this page doesn't actually use any of that data. So one way of improving this is, instead of this get all posts function, I want to give it some sort of kind of filtering methods, which will allow me to actually reduce it down to just the post data that this particular post needs. This post actually doesn't need any information outside of its particular post, but some posts do, because they, so for instance, if it's part of a series, it needs details on the other posts in the series to build up these kind of series contents. Or some other posts, they include other posts based on a tag. So we do need to have other posts available when necessary. So that's to come in the future, but that is one way in which this new site at the moment is slightly slower than the old one, because it's got more to deal with. So let's just go back to this. So once we've got the content and the data, we convert the Markdown to HTML. This Markdown to HTML function uses the NextMDX remote. So I'm not actually directly using MDX in this site at the moment. I actually found it, because with the MDX pages you couldn't have an asynchronous getStaticProps. It actually limited what I could achieve in those files. So maybe someone knows of a good way of doing that, but I couldn't find one. So I kind of have separated these page types so that any asynchronous stuff, so collecting some of this data, can happen before it renders the page. So at this point, these files are basically being read and being converted just as they were in my Jekyll site. At the moment, I'm saving the atom XML file during the getStatic paths. So during export, it just runs this once, and it gets all the posts and writes the atom.xml so that there's an RSS feed. I found a few posts talking about this, and this was the suggested way. Not sure if I like it yet, because it seems to happen a lot during development, more than I'd like. But that's where we are at the moment, and gonna see if there's nicer ways of doing this, especially during export. There's probably a better way of hooking into this, because it just has to happen once. So that gets saved, and then there is no fallback, because the posts, we know every single post in the site. For the rest of the pages, I wanted to pull back the same sort of content and just write in Markdown like I used to with Jekyll. And again, this is where I tried to use MDX, but because these pages needed data like lists of posts by tag and things like that, the MDX way didn't work for me, and so I went back to using just normal Markdown, and I created this extra Slug page in the root of the site to do some basic data fetching based on the post's front matter. And this one doesn't have any. So this based on this front matter. This is where I'm working on this at the moment. So at the moment, this posts by tag doesn't work. But what I'm going to work on, as I was talking about with the posts, is to have a way of just specifying via tags the tags that I want included in the front in the next data of this page. So then that will start working. So I'm thinking maybe it will be something like posts, and it will need to have something like tags talks, something like that. And then I can use that to get all of the data necessary for this page. And I can do that in other pages as well. So we'll work on that later. Tags wise itself, I created a tags page, which just creates a tag. Which looks for a tag in the URL, and then the getStaticProps goes through all of the posts, gets all the unique tags, and then maps them to paths. The getStaticProps grabs that tag, gets all the posts by that tag, and then puts them into tag posts. And then again, I just render my post by tag component. I've used Tailwind to lay out this whole site, and I was a bit skeptical at the beginning, but I thought I'd just give it a go and see what I could come up with. And after getting used to the class names, I'm actually really quite enjoying using it. You can see here that it has allowed me to very quickly just sort of scaffold out this site. It's a very simple site, and it has worked really well. I can imagine that in slightly more complex sites, the list of class names could get quite hard to read, but I've actually found it to be okay, and much easier to see what is actually going on inside the styling of a particular component. So that's actually been really, really good. What else can I go through? Yeah, so the one thing that I really do recommend turning on and configuring correctly is the purge. So making sure that it is finding the right pages and purging them so that your CSS at the end of the day isn't bigger than it needs to be. And that is the beauty of having everything contained inside this one repo. And it is a very simple site, so this works really well. So that is it, really. So we can look at a few things. So that we've got posts, we've got tag pages, we've got different components. This homepage pulls in tags of pages based on tags in different places, and then the most recent pages. So all in all, it's working okay. And the Lighthouse score, which I think will be able to be improved. It's not as good as my old one, but it's actually not bad. So there you go. As a quick tour around the way I set up the new NextJs blog.